you ready?
Level Up Daily, the hottest podcast for self-growth with interviews from the hottest celebrities.
Told her to level me up, yeah.
Now, your host, DeAndre Evans.
Told her to level me up, yeah.
It's time to level up.
Now level up.
Yo, what's up, ladies and G's? Much love to those returning. Shout out for those tuning in for the first time. And today, I have a very special guest on today's episode. This person is known for creating their very own success. They have taken over the real estate industry by flipping houses at a very young age. He was able to take a negative bank account and turn it to over $33,000 within only 60 days in one of the most competitive markets. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this guy is 21, 22 years old? Ladies and G's, I have the talented Jaelin White on today's episode. What's up, Jay? How you feeling, man?
What's up, man? I don't know how I follow up with that introduction, but happy to be here, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. I'm definitely excited. And I know all the listeners tuning in that's going to be checking out this podcast are definitely excited. I'm glad to have you on the show, man. I've been watching you, for a while, to be honest. I actually discovered you on Ty Lopez's YouTube channel.
Nice.
And I was checking out this segment of real estate because I was like, let me check this out, because I was thinking about getting into real estate myself and just venturing it off. And
Sure.
I was watching, I was thinking to myself, I was like, yo, this guy's lit. Like, he knows his shit. And I was like, I definitely got to have him on the show. And I'm glad I was able to make it happen. And thank you for, being open to this and getting on the podcast with me.
Absolutely, man. I'm ready to throw down, throw a bunch of value
Let's
down.
do it. Let's do it. Because I know I got a lot of questions, especially those who've been reaching out and tuning in, because it was like, wait, you got Jaelin White on the podcast? Like, it's like, he's in real estate, dude. Like, he's cool. Like, so I've been getting a lot of love for you, man, on the back end. But
Awesome. Glad to hear.
Definitely. And I just want to go ahead and open it up, because I usually start the podcast backstory. Like, how did you get started, in the real estate industry? How did it come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off, I got in when I was 18. And you mentioned, I made my first, I think it was like 33K in 60 days. That was at 18 when I first got into the business. Basically, I was broke. Your typical story. I could go into, I started this and that business, but everybody does it. It's the same cliche story between all entrepreneurs. I knew I wanted to make money. And at 18, I was broke. So we heard on a radio interview, you can flip houses, no money, no credit needed. And my wife, my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, her dad actually, registered for that free class and took us there. And so basically, we didn't learn anything, because the business model is you bring them into a free seminar, you upsell them to a $300 seminar where you still don't teach them really anything, and then you sell a $40,000 coaching package, right? So we got there, and we're like, okay, nobody has the money for a $40,000 coaching package, but at least we know it's possible. So resourcefulness, right? I went home, and for 4 months on YouTube, I basically taught myself wholesaling and didn't really teach myself, watching other people's videos. Obviously, you don't just meditate and sit there and say, body, and all of a sudden the formula to wholesale properties comes into your head, right? So it's digging through forums. It's listening to podcasts just like this. It was a lot of that. And I could have skipped that if I had money to buy like a $500 course or whatever. There's tons of them, thousands of them out there. But it took me 4 months. And long story short, if anybody knows, I'm not going to get really into the specifics in this interview, because people could or could not want to get into real estate. Who knows? But I did bandit signs for anybody who knows. Got my first 2 deals and closed my first $12,000 deal. Basically, you put a property under contract, right? You assign that contract to a cash buyer for an assignment fee. It's all done through a title company. It's all, organized, legit, whatever you want to say. Right. So it's not like I met the owner with a bag full of cash, It doesn't happen like that. We signed a purchase agreement. I signed that purchase agreement. I made $12,000 2 days before high school graduation. And, I just remember going through school, the classroom and stuff like that, and showing because it was, how in high school you had to go around and get teachers to sign you out of school. Exactly. That day I was showing my friends my bank account, because I just got the wire that morning. And that's pretty much. And then my second deal, I took my wife and I to Poland, and my second deal closed while I was in Poland a month later, because I'd gotten it under contract prior to leaving, and I joint venture with another guy who brought the buyer. And I got an $8,000 wire while I was in Europe. So at that point I was like, okay, this is cool. I can make money. So I kept doing it, and turned into hiring employees and stuff like that. So
nice, man. That's crazy. And I know everybody listening in right now, like, yo, what the hell? Like, and this heard all of that. It's like, well, no way, right? They probably going crazy. It's probably like how some of your boys and friends were like, man, you just showed them the wire. They saw the money, saw the bag and everything. So like, how was, the transition? Like, how did, you come about into getting into real estate? Like, was it something that you was passionate about, or it just came up out the blue, or?
Dude, if I'm going to be really honest, because we're 100% real on this podcast, right? Like, I don't love real estate. Like, it's a simple business, and that's what I love about it. But I just needed some way to where I can make money without hurting any party involved. I want to be able to help people while we're making money.
Right.
And contrary to popular belief, some people would sit there and think, oh, if you're buying a $100,000 property for $50,000, you're screwing the seller. Or, the buyers and you make, the same amount that the buyer's going to make flipping it in 3 months, you're screwing the buyer. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. Because if you think about it, if you go to a dealership and you're like, you got this car, you really want to buy a new car today. Like your eyes set on the car. But imagine if the dealership said, to make money and to be realistic on making our target margins, we have to offer you, $15,000 for your car. And in your head, you're like, great. And they say, but we don't think that's fair because we're going to sell it for $20,000. So unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go.
Right.
You're going to be like depressed, right? You have this, or imagine if you couldn't afford the payment that was due in a week, right? And so you're going to have your car repossessed and the dealership turns you away because they're going to make money on it, right? Like, people don't realize that we're providing a service when we do real estate deals. So that's what I really loved about it. It's not that I love the business or, because if anybody's going to be honest, you're not 100% passionate about the business. You're passionate about the lifestyle and the impact that you're able to make through it, Right. So that's what really excited me, was realizing that I could help other people. I could put buyers in a position to make money in their business. I could get sellers out of tough situations with houses and, really make it a win-win for everybody. Nice. And that's what I liked about it.
Nice. And I know it had to be something in it for you, like in the beginning, like you said, like what was like the goal? Like, okay, let's get into real estate, but I want to, either buy a car, I want to take this trip. Like, what was it for you?
Yeah. No, the goal for me was basically just being able to have money in the bank account, because my parents moved away when I was 17 years old. And obviously I wanted the Lamborghini. I wanted, and I bought that at 21. Nice. And then I realized, wait, it's not that special. Like, let's make an impact in other people's lives, But anyways, my goal going into it was just put some money in my pocket. I'm sure some of the listeners maybe can resonate with that, is where it's just like, even if you just made $2,000 on a deal, just knowing that you could make money without going to clock into a job was enough to like fuel that initial excitement to say, okay, I've got something, let me push into it. So that was really my only goal going into it, was not let me make $1 million right off the bat, because if you think about making $1 million, you're going to get caught up in the big things rather than the small things. You're going to be like, 20 bandit signs. How am I going to make $1 million?
Yeah, exactly.
You got to get excited about the small goals when you're starting out. So I was getting excited about first it was, let me get my first seller lead, right? Let me go on my first appointment to make an offer on a property. Then it was, let me get my first contract. And then it was, let me get my first cash buyer and see if I can assign that contract for a profit. And then I close the deal, and then you get excited, and then you're like, well, let me see how I can scale.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's kind of how it led up to getting my first deal, was just focusing on those little small steps. So if you're a beginner, I just gave you a blueprint to close your first deal, right? Get your first seller lead, go on your first appointment, make your first offer, get your first contract, get your first cash buyer to assign that contract to, and then close the deal. You know what I mean? It's simple.
Exactly. And I was actually going to get into that too. Exactly. Like, how did that first deal come about for you? Because I know so many people, who are interested in getting into real estate, or who are now in real estate, and they just started, but they having a hard time, closing that first deal. Like, what advice would you give to someone that's taking that first step?
Yeah. So for me, I got a little bit like almost lucky, but not really, because I took an internship, quote unquote, with like a local guy. And I was doing bandit signs for him, right? And he accidentally included 20 We Buy Houses bandit signs. Ironically, I put out 100 signs. He was supposed to pay me $100, for his coaching business, because he did real estate coaching, and he never paid me. So I kept the 20 bandit signs, and then I put them out a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of failures in between when I first started learning and this point. So don't think that I just automatically got bandit signs. And, I went on appointments with MLS deals, which basically means they're just on the market, right? Everybody can see them. I don't do anything on the MLS, if you know what that is. It's where realtors put up the properties they list,
Got you. Yeah.
So I'd gone on appointments and made a fool of myself and all of that. But and after that, I realized, okay, I need to get off market deals. So I had this deal going with this investor, and I got 20 bandit signs right on the side. And ironically, I believe in God, and I believe it was a wink from God, trying to nudge me into the right direction. Because if you ever read The Alchemist,
Great book.
What is it that? Yeah, absolutely. What is it that the king in the start says? He says, that people are, beginner's luck, right? Go all out when you have beginner's luck on your side. So I had beginner's luck. The number on the bandit sign where you're supposed to fill in the phone number was blank. So I was able to write it in with my own Sharpie markers, right? So I had beginner's luck. I had these 20 bandit signs which just by chance happen to not have a phone number, which I've never seen any other bandit signs that somebody doesn't fill in a phone number, right? Up to this point, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So I put those out, and, waking up, I tell you what, man, the small things is what differentiates the people actually are successful and the people are not, because most people aren't willing to wake up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, go down into the hood and put out bandit signs for 4, 5, 6 hours,
Exactly.
because doing 50 bandit signs, that'll take you a good 5, 6 hours. Doing 20 bandit signs will take you a good, 3, 4 hours, especially when you want to put them in the right place. And the Arizona dirt is not soft, man. I had blisters after doing that, but man, that's the difference. And then, between the people who actually make something happen and who don't. So I got my first deal from those bandit signs. Basically, a seller called and said, "Hey, I've got this property I inherited. I haven't touched it. It was in the middle of the hood, man."
Where exactly? Exactly where it was, the street?
Yeah, it was in Old Town Avondale. I don't know if any listeners know, in Phoenix. And then, I put up all my signs in Maryvale, if anybody knows, in Phoenix, and South Phoenix. So rough areas, but at the end of the day, that's where a lot of money is made in real estate, is in the rougher areas. So I got this house that nobody had lived in for what looked like 20 years, holes in the floors, all that kind of stuff. And I got under contract for $15,000, and I ended up selling that contract for $30,000.
Nice.
And I paid the closing costs, so I ended up with a $12,000 check.
Nice.
So,
and that's still a win.
Absolutely. I wasn't worried about the $3,000 closing costs,
Exactly.
I was like, give me the money,
Right. Now, it seems like you had obviously a determined, mindset, and you had a strategy going into this. Like, with the situation that was given to you at hand, you had a strategy in place on what you was going to do with the banner signs and stuff, and where you're going to put them out at. Now, what kind of strategies did you develop to become, so successful? Like, how did it come about to where you was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, this, and this to get me here. I'm gonna take the money from here, put it there. Like, how's your strategy work there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as far as when I first started out, obviously I was broke, but once you start making money, all of a sudden you go from being just a hustler to an organizer. You know what I mean? Marketing budgets, stuff like that. So I'm going to blow some people's mind right now. If you want it bad enough, making $50,000, $100,000 a year in real estate is easy. Like, if you want it bad enough, you're willing to work 30 to 40 hours a week on your goal, and in that position, you can make 50 to 100K working for yourself easily. Especially, I was probably working 10 to 20 hours a week my first year, and I made like 130,000 in that period, in that first 12-month period.
Nice.
And I was just chilling. Like, I was playing Madden every day with my buddy Alex. Like, he just did a podcast yesterday. He's like, my first year was just, my goal was to make 100K while playing Xbox all day. That's what I was doing. So if you're working 30, 40 hours a week doing this, hiring people, are we, what's our company culture going to look like? What's our marketing budget and cash flow looking like?
Right.
And all of a sudden that $1,000, maybe $1,500, $2,000 a month been investing when you first started out seems like way too little, and all of a sudden you start spending $10, $15, $20, $35,000 in a month on marketing, and you're like sweating buckets because that's a lot of money to invest. So it's kind of like it's kind of like just leveling up your mindset, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure if
Yeah.
I'm answering your question exactly,
No, you're
but I
hitting
hope
it.
you can feel the point where I'm going.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope everyone tuning in was able to grasp that too, because it's definitely, like you said, it was a strategy behind it. Like I said before, you went into it, with the mindset of what you wanted to do, what you wanted to make, and at the same time, over time, playing Madden, just kicking it with your buddies. You actually took it a step further and laid out a platform where not only are you able to win, but you're able to show other people how to win too.
Absolutely, because you don't realize it. Like, people don't think about the fact that once you start having employees working and stuff like that, you're making an impact. Like, you're allowing for more sellers' lives to be impacted. Your employees' lives are impacted because they have a stable job. They're able to make money and stuff like that. So yeah, and plus, not to mention, my whole goal has always been to optimize for free time. So basically, how do I make it so that my business is going to run whether I feel like getting up in the morning to make calls or not? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I haven't talked to a seller in probably a year and a half at this point.
Nice.
Because obviously that part of my business, has been outsourced. So and has that held me back in some ways? Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of people say it, Grant Cardone says it, when you start hiring people, you will make less than you would just working yourself in your business. But at the end of the day, you got to kind of take a step back to take 10 steps forward when you take that first leap of faith and you start like thinking about scaling your business. And I don't know the range of people listening right now. Some people could have 100 employees. A person might have never made a dime working for themselves, and they're like, how do I get in? So don't be too overwhelmed if you hear me talking about employees.
Yeah.
Like I said in the beginning, just focus on that first step of what's the first thing I need to do to make me money in the business. And if it's in real estate, it's getting your first seller lead.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
Exactly, and that's crucial. Now, I know you mentioned earlier, you said you started off basically with nothing. You had to borrow money, right, to get into, the game of real estate. Now, can people invest into real estate with no money?
So pretty much the only money that you need in real estate is the earnest money deposit. And obviously, you need to be upfront. Your contract needs to stay, subject to acceptable financing and stuff like that. Lawyer, and I'm not going to give any advice on that on the podcast here, but that's all the money I needed. And obviously, you need some money if you're going to be doing marketing. Now, if you're resourceful and you're broke and you got that fire in your stomach, you can make it happen. With no money, but it's always nice to have like $500 or $1,000, around so that you can start $200 a month, $300 a month on marketing,
Got you. So basically nothing too extravagant, because I know some people think, hopping into real estate, they need a couple thousand, you need a couple hundred, to buy a property. But, your way on how you're going about it, it's a different tactic to it, right? It's a different strategy. Gotcha.
Exactly. And obviously you'll make a little bit less per deal, but you can do a lot more deals because you don't need the capital to do them, So doing assignment contracts, doing transactional funding and stuff. And actually, surprisingly enough, man, if somebody wanted to fix and flip and get into the business, they wouldn't really need much money at all either. Because when you bring a good deal into play, there's hundreds, if not thousands of investors in every market across the country who will fund that deal and partner 50-50 with you. And they'll put up all the money if it's a good deal. So
Gotcha.
The most important thing, man, in the business is just finding a good deal. And that's the skill that people don't realize. They're thinking about, how do I lend it private money? How do I find cash buyers? How do I do in today's market where it's so hot? And I'm sure you've seen like all the, the headlines, like houses selling a record time and stuff. It's a hot market, and I don't know when that's going to end. But right now, the most important skill to have is finding a good deal. So if you want to make yourself money, find good deals.
Find a good deal. Got to be a good seller and a good closer too. Definitely a good
Exactly.
seller.
Yeah, that's another skill you got to pick up is sales.
Exactly. Now, because I know you was mentioning that, and I was actually going to follow up with that, just for the fact that some people want to know what does it take to find that right deal or that right property. Like, what is something people should look out for when selecting properties or looking out for deals?
Yeah. So number one, first thing you got to realize is that it's a numbers game. You got to think about it in the terms of, okay, if I talk to 25, seller leads, I'm going to get one that's actually, a deal. Yeah. So you can't expect your first 5 or even 10 seller leads that you talk to be a deal. Now, sometimes you'll get, if you're using a marketing strategy that really highlights motivated sellers like bandit signs or PPC, you might get, your first people who call might be deals. That's how it is. We have obviously criteria when we're looking at the actual property. So, what's the condition of the property? What's their reason for selling? All that kind of stuff. And then we figure out what it's worth. And this is way more than I could explain on even a 5-hour long podcast.
Right. But just the gist of it, right? Just to have that
so
background.
Basically in most markets, we're doing 70% of what the property's worth minus repairs, minus what we want to make on the deal. And that's how we come up with our offer. So when you're looking at like what's a good deal and what's not, everything's a good deal at the right price. Like, I don't care if Jimmy John has a house that's half fallen over, like my first deal was.
Yeah.
Whatever the case is, there's a buyer for it. Let me put it this way. My buddy, he has a car dealership, and he was telling me, like, when he first got in the business, all of his mentors would tell him there's an ask for every seat. You know what I mean? Every car has a buyer at the right price. So every house has a buyer at the right price. You've just got to make sure you get it at the right price. And that's the most important part.
Exactly.
So break down your numbers. Number one, like we said, 1 in 25. And number two, make sure you get it at the right price. And when you do that, it becomes pretty simple. And you start realizing that, hey, I just need to find somebody who's interested in selling their house off market. And I've got to figure out what it's worth, right? Figure out the after repair value, it's called. Figure out what it's worth after it's fixed up. Yep. And then I run whatever, some markets are, Los Angeles would be 80% of ARV minus repairs, minus wholesale fee. So some markets are different. So figure out how hot my market is and figure out that number, is it 70% of ARV, 80% if it's a hotter market, and then figure out what to offer, get the contract, and then you're halfway done. Or I'd say you're 75% of the way done, because it's pretty easy to find, cash buyers in today's market.
Exactly. And I know people are like, what? Some people listening to that are new. They be like, oh my God. Like I know they're excited, but they're like, there's so much information. They got to write it down. Don't worry, guys. We're going to have this all on back loop. You're going to be able to reach out to Jay. I'm going to put all his contact information in the podcast so you guys can reach out and have any additional questions. But, has a deal ever gone bad for you? Like, has things ever went left and you was like, oh shit, what do I do now?
Great question. Yeah. So first, before I talk about the deal that has almost gone bad, I wanted to bring up the fact that if you don't want a deal to go bad, you need to do it right. So I'm not saying giving you guys any direct advice. You need to make sure that when you're like, you can't just market a property for sale that you don't own. You have to have it under contract, number one, and then you got to market that contract for sale. You're not selling the house to a cash buyer. You're selling that contract that you have, that equitable interest. If you read like The Art of the Deal and stuff, you read about Donald Trump's like first big deal. He sold his option contract to do like the convention center in New York City. So it's very similar to that. You're not selling the actual property, you're selling the contract. That's one very important part if you want to make sure that you're not doing it wrong. So if people are like, oh, is this legal? Is this illegal? It is illegal if you do it the wrong way. You need to market your contract for sale. Otherwise, you can get in some serious trouble. So make sure you do it right.
So break down that example, because I know you gave it on Ty, YouTube channel. Like, how would that example look? If you can paint that picture for us on how that contract is, or is it a certain term that is going by?
Yeah. So basically, when you sign a purchase agreement, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give any contractual advice. But when you're signing a purchase agreement, if that contract is assignable, which in most states it automatically is, even if it doesn't clearly state in the contract that it's assignable, then you can sell your equitable interest and assign that to somebody else. So like, you see a lot of mortgage companies assign their mortgages to other mortgage companies. It's the same thing in this business. So, if you sign a purchase agreement with a seller and let's say that contract,
let's say it's me and you and another buyer or whatever.
Yeah. So let's say you're the owner, right? Yep. And I sign a purchase agreement to buy your property at 123 Main Street, right, for $50,000. And in that contract, it clearly states that contract is assignable, right? So then what I can do is I can go to Billy Bob over here, who's my cash buyer, and say, hey, Billy Bob, I've got this contract on 123 Main Street. I want to sell it to you. Would you be interested in buying for $60,000? And so Billy Bob will say either yes or no. And if he says yes, then great. And we sign an assignment agreement with Billy Bob where he actually takes over that purchase agreement between you and I. And since he was in for 60, I get the $10,000 that's left over, after you get your 50.
Gotcha.
pretty much it's and depending on how your lawyer or you structure your assignment agreement, it's either going to say $60,000 or a $10,000 assignment fee plus a $50,000 purchase price to the seller. So it's pretty simple.
Gotcha.
But you just want to make sure, if nothing else, you just want to make sure that you're not marketing the property itself. You want to market that contract for sale, not the property.
Got you. And that's crucial. And I wanted to, paint that image because a lot of people was, getting the gist of the numbers and everything. They're like, oh, wow, he's making 10,000, 30,000, 50, whatever. And it's like, well, how can I do it? And that, I think that picture probably painted it pretty well for him. Now, back to that deal, because I know we went off on a slight tangent. But back to that deal. Like, I know you were saying before, like, has a deal ever gone bad for you? And if so, how did you turn it around, or what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember one specific. So I've been blessed enough to not have, very many terrible stories or deals really going bad. But I had one deal. Obviously, sometimes sellers will back out and stuff, and you can kind of decide how you want to handle that. But one deal I actually had in a contract, and I had sold it to one of my buddies, sold the contract to one of my buddies, and I was going to make like $12,000, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty decent assignment. Like, it's not huge, but it's just a base hit. And the tenants there, my end buyer, the person I was assigning the contract to, needed the property to be clear. So the tenants were not paying rent. They were not even paying the water bill. The water was shut off. They were basically squatters, so they weren't really technically tenants. They'd never had a lease signed, and the owner was just too nice of an owner where he never kicked him out. He lived in another state, and these are some of the situations you'll come across when you're dealing with wholesale properties. This guy had just had this property where these people are basically mooching off of him, and it was they had trashed it. The water was off, pipes were all bad and stuff like that, and so. I had fronted these tenants $3,000 basically to vacate the property so that they could get into another house, because I'm not some heartless mofo who says, hey, move it. Like, people think rude and terrible. Like, no, I set up a house for these people or a tenancy with another apartment complex where I actually put up $3,000. So they had the first like 3 or 4, 5 months paid. Can't remember the exact amount of months that they got for that $3,000.
Wow.
And I got them in that apartment. Right.
Nice.
So they're all, the contract term was a month, and that a weekend I realized I needed to get these people out. So a week after that, I had them into another apartment, helped them move and stuff like that. Right. So they're in their apartment. They're happy. They have nothing to do with that property anymore. We get to closing day. Right. And the owner sends in a paper. It wasn't even written by the owner. You could tell, because I knew the owner's handwriting. You can kind of tell if it's totally different. Yeah. After you sign a purchase agreement, obviously, and he had faxed it over in case anybody's like, oh, I thought he lived in another state. He had faxed over the purchase agreement, and he had faxed in a paper that said, like, I need to cancel the contract. And so I was like, I've got $3,000 into this. Like, I'm not losing $3,000 for no reason.
Exactly.
Like, I'm buying this deal. Once you have money into the serious, I had already put $1,000 earnest money, because once you start actually doing a lot of deals, you want to put more than $10 earnest money, to show that you're serious. So I had $1,000 earnest money into the deal. Get back if he backed out, but still, plus the $3,000 that I got to the tenants that I wasn't getting back for sure.
Right. So you 4,000 in the hole already.
Yeah, right. And so I'm getting a call from the title company. He just sent this thing in that he wants to cancel, and it's literally the day of. Maybe it was the day right before closing. I don't really remember, because it was almost 3 years ago. And I was like, oh, heck no. So my instant, reaction to this was somebody else is trying to buy this property for a lower price. So I give him maybe $1,000 or $2,000 higher than what I was buying, which is highly unethical. It's illegal to do. You can't come in and when somebody's already got their property in a contract, you can't come in and offer them more and they cancel that contract that they were in. Like,
right.
Depending on how the contract's structured, that's illegal,
Exactly.
So, so basically I had to call the owner and like negotiate, and I ended up giving him like $2,000 or $3,000 extra, because he had another contract that was like $1,000 more than mine, sent to him, and he got, instead of $60,000 that I was offering, it was like $61,000. So I came up like $2,000 or $3,000 to get him to close. Yeah. And I closed, and I still made money. I probably made like net because you get your earnest money back, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So after the 3,000, I made like, $7,000 on that deal. But man, the emotional
roller coaster, right?
roller coaster. That's why you want to have employees. This was my first year. I was still doing everything myself. I don't want to hear about sellers trying to back out. It was crazy. So luckily everybody ended up being happy, and we got the deal closed, and the seller was real happy, buyer was real happy, I was real happy. So happy ending, but that was still crazy. And I still to this day don't know who tried backdooring me, but I tried figuring out for a good month after that. So
yeah, they're probably gonna lay low for a while. They're like, yeah, I gotta stay out the scene.
Right. Yeah.
It's gonna find me. But that's crazy, man. That's really wild to go through something like that. But it's good enough to know that, it was an experience that you was able to, get through. A lot of people probably would have stopped and just bagged out and be like, I'm going home, forget this real estate thing or whatever.
Right.
But, I'm glad you was able to push through and get it done. Because, if you wouldn't, you probably wouldn't even be, here. Like on the podcast, you probably just would have stopped and, did something else. But
right.
With that being said, though, because I know, obviously, you say you're married, right?
Yeah.
And how long you been married to your wife?
We've been married about 2.5 years almost.
2.5 years. Nice. And so basically, what, high school sweethearts? So
yeah.
Nice. Nice. Young love. So, at this point, she's watching you doing your thing, and, she's obviously doing her thing. She's big on YouTube, which I know of, but a lot of people may not know of, but, she's big on YouTube doing her thing. Now, is there something where what drives you now? What do you grind for? Because in the beginning, it was more so, yourself. Now, is it, building this family, building a legacy, or is it more so employee? What is the grind behind what you're doing now?
Yeah. So my why and kind of why I'm doing it has changed. Mm-hmm. So it started out, like you said, take care of my immediate family. So me and my wife, mm-hmm. How do we make sure that every month, even though, a good rule of thumb for anybody, if you're making money, is keep a year's worth of income in the bank if you work for yourself. Mm-hmm. So if we're getting down to where we have about a year's worth of income in the bank, I'm freaking out, Yeah. And then once it got past that point, once we started working to make more, it's now become, how do I impact my family? So how do I get my family involved? Mm-hmm. Obviously I've got employees and that's a big part of it, but it's really become, how do I help my family level up in life? And my family is great there, and so is Brianna's family. Mm. But, we don't really have, anybody that thinks like we do, Mm-hmm. Brianna's uncle is a furniture designer, and that's probably the closest thing to us. Mm-hmm. But, the way we think. But we're really trying to get everybody to realize that, you can create the reality that you want. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but you just got to set a goal. I want to work for myself and make $50,000 a year, and you can make it happen. I don't care what the business is. If it's eBay drop shipping, if it's real estate wholesaling, if it's, doing whatever you want to do, it's just getting people to level up their mindset. So for me, that's a big part of it. Right. Of what I'm kind of moving forward, for the future to try to do is to not just give family money, but to create self-sufficiency as well. You know what I mean? To where people can actually affect their own lives. Because I don't know if you're the same, but whenever I've been given something, I don't really, for the first day, it's great, but you don't really treat it with respect. You know what I mean? But when you put in the sweat and the tears and the blood,
exactly.
Hopefully not the blood too much, but you know, and you achieve it, it's way, way more fulfilling. And in my opinion, progress is the main thing that can help a person stay happy. It's progress.
Definitely, man. And I totally agree. Progress is what we all seek anyway. Personally, I feel like that's the one thing that makes us all happy is progress. Yeah. If
Absolutely.
You're moving forward, you're going towards your goal and what you want, you're content, you're happy as ever. But I definitely been in a similar situation. I put up money for, family and friends to get into businesses and stuff, but they don't go as hard as you anticipated them to go hard, right? And it is veer off on its own little path, and they're like, "Oh, I'll just do it later." But you're like, "Yo, that was my money that I put into it.
Absolutely.
I did it for you, bro. Come on, let's do this." But on the flip side, you got to look at yourself okay, obviously that person, what they're about, and basically it falls on you at the end of the day if they didn't do what you expected them to do. So
exactly,
yeah, I definitely understand that. It's crazy, but just transition out of that, because obviously your mindset is right, man. You definitely have a lot going on. I definitely commend you for everything that you have going on. Definitely inspired me to do a lot more too. So
Thanks.
And I know a lot of people probably listening in like, yo, I love this guy. And like, yo, he's so like energetic.
Well, trust me, I'm not that great, man. You catch me at night playing some Fortnite or whatever. I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. It gets real at night, but
yeah.
But no, I mean, so transitioning back into the real estate game, just overall taking in this concept, like what advice would you give to someone who wants to pursue exactly what you do? Like, what would be the first step or advice or piece of advice that you recommend them doing, getting involved in real estate?
Yeah. So number one, I would say just, take in as much information as you can. You don't want to go on information overload. You want to find a balance between content, like actual actionable content, and motivation. So like this would be more of maybe a mix, but more motivation, I'd say, is this podcast here.
Yeah.
And then you want to listen to some like, exactly how to do this and that, exactly how to find motivated sellers, exactly how to, look for cash buyers or whatever the business is that you're interested in getting into. You want to mix it between motivation and actual content that will help you take step-by-step action to get into the business. So, for me, it'd be figuring out how to get your first motivated seller. That'd be my first piece of action, because once you can figure out how to find motivated sellers, you now have value in the business. So you can basically go to anybody who does real estate investing in your area, and you could say, look, I've gotten good at finding motivated sellers. Is there any way you can, go on appointments with me, talk to the seller with me, and any, stuff like that, where the people will absolutely agree because it's money into their pockets as well. So, you'll JV on the deal with them. So create your value in the space by learning how to find motivated sellers is step one. Step two is going to be getting a Rocket Lawyer membership, because obviously in this business, you're dealing with contracts and stuff like that. And Rocket Lawyer is $40 a month. So people are asking like, oh, how do I, do this and that with the contracts? And you get like, I think 10 contracts for free per month, I think, in your Rocket Lawyer membership. I'm not going to quote exactly because I don't remember, but I have a Rocket Lawyer membership. Every month I pay $40 because whenever I have some sort of contract question, I just go to them and ask them. You don't want to go to somebody on YouTube and talk to like somebody who's never dealt with what you're doing. Not to mention, if you go to like a title company that's never done anything like with assignments and stuff, they're not going to know what you're talking about. You don't want to go to a mechanic to have your transmission fixed when all they've ever done in their life is fix windshield wipers.
Right.
It's like you need somebody who's experienced in that space. So I would start off with Rocket Lawyer so that you can get some basic contract knowledge and real estate contract knowledge. And then, start to get into really niche specific, lawyers for advice. Obviously you don't need to spend a bunch of money, but maybe invest $100, $150 into some quality legal advice. So, how to write an assignment, how to write a purchase agreement. Obviously if you also buy a course and stuff like that, a lot of people go over that, and that's perfectly fine. But remember, at the end of the day, you'll feel a lot more comfortable if you talk to a lawyer about a contract, because that's what they do for a living.
Nice.
So that would be step two, is just, get some decent legal advice. And you don't need to go out and do that, but a Rocket Lawyer membership. And I'm gonna be honest, if you have less than, $100, $200, $300 put into the business, I was in high school when I started this, and I would tell myself this today, if I could talk to myself back when I was 17, 18, is like, go get a job, like go get a 20-hour-a-week job, start getting money in your bank account so that you can mess up without freaking out, And I had been loading trucks for Brianna's dad is a truck driver, so he would hire me for like $10 an hour to help him load, right? So every couple weeks I could make $100, $200 or however much it is to load that load with him. And that made me some extra money. So I didn't have a really good source of income, but in my opinion, you don't just want to start out sitting on your mom's couch and like be, at 21 or 30 or whatever it is, trying to get into business. You should have some type of money that you want to invest. So I didn't mean to really go off on a tangent there, but it's just in case anybody's like, I thought he said I could do this without any money. Like, yeah, you can, but if you want to be safe and smart, you got to have a few $100 to your name,
Exactly. You gotta stay ahead of the curve, guys. Just play it smart, play it safe.
Don't be the guy who starts with negative money in his bank account. Like, it's funny. I'm like, don't do what I did, but I was in high school, so
totally different.
If you're in high school, you can do it. But if you're in a working world, man, try to have some type of money to invest. And then step 3, I would just say, is network. You want to get around some solid people. That way, when you have your first deal, no matter how much information you've watched and taken in, you want to be able to text somebody and say, hey, John, is this deal a decent deal? Like, do you want to do this deal with me? And if you have those people to text and call, you're going to feel a lot better when it comes time to sign that purchase agreement with a seller, because you'll have a lot more confidence, and you'll be better on your sales, and you'll be better at closing because people will pick up on the fact that you're really confident. Yeah. So build that network is what I'd say.
Definitely. And that was 3 important and very imperative points to take in, guys. Hopefully you was able to grasp that concept and that information to actually go out and apply it. I mean, Jalen, he came on the show, man, to give some value. He's definitely dropping some jewels all over this podcast.
Thanks, man.
This podcast is about to be called Jaelin White, Level Up Daily.
Man, get out of here.
So
man,
just
come
take
on.
it over.
You kill it out here.
Taking it over. But no, man, I greatly appreciate that. And I know a lot of my listeners tuning in would definitely be reaching out to you for sure. But I know you said, the first 3 steps obviously do point A, point B, point C, or whatever, to get to where you want to go. Now, what strategy for someone who is new to real estate, right? And I know we kind of touched up on it a little bit. Like, what can someone do today to get started in real estate?
Yeah. So obviously we're already almost 50 minutes into this podcast. Yeah. Right after this, I could go into, hey, you need to pull some lists on ListSource or buy some bandit signs from dirtcheapsigns.com. But I'm not going to do that because I have a YouTube channel with 50 free videos. So number one, I'd say go over. I'm not going to try to self-promote or whatever. And
do it. This is what it's about. This is what it's about.
I created the YouTube channel because I was getting literally probably 10 DMs a day of people asking the same exact questions. Hey, where do I find seller leads? Hey, where do I find this and that? And so I started a YouTube channel, and I don't really keep up with it as much as I should because there's 50 videos of everything basically you need to know to start doing deals. So I would go to my YouTube channel. It's just Jaelin White on YouTube and watch my YouTube videos. Like I said, over 50 videos on there. You'll see a video on how I first got started. You'll see how to get seller leads, how to get buyer leads, all that. There's literally there's 50 videos. So It's a plethora of information that you would need as far as actionable steps. So this interview might have served as motivation for you to light that fire. Mm-hmm. And now, turn it into some actionable stuff and go watch some content related stuff is what I'd say.
Exactly. Because I know a lot of people, learn differently. You get those who learn auditory, and then you got those visuals as well. So it's definitely makes it up, guys. And like I said, I'm gonna definitely tag it down below in the podcast. But I know we kind of pushing for time here, and I don't want to hold you up because, like you said, the phone's blowing up. You got business stuff to get into. But
all good.
I did want to end it off on 2 little quick questions here. And the first one is, what lessons have you learned just being an entrepreneur, in the real estate industry at a young age, starting from, negative bank account from zero, from nothing to growing, a 7 figure business over time. What lessons have you learned so far being in real estate?
So I would say that the main lesson I've learned is that you never truly get comfortable. You start off, you think, wow, man, if I just had $10,000 in my bank account, I would feel so good. Mm-hmm. And then you get $10,000 in your account, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, wow, if I had just $50,000 in my bank account at any given time, I'd feel amazing. Yeah. And then you're like, wow, if I just had $100,000 and then 200 and then $1 million, it just keeps on going. And, your revenue goals keep on changing. And so the main thing that I've learned is to not focus on the end goal, is to focus on the process. In love with the process of, doing step 1, talking to sellers, and then hiring people. If you can't fall in love with that step-by-step process and you're just in love with the fancy cars and the wristwatches, and I'm not really into that. I sold my Lamborghini, we got a Porsche. It's not as showy, but
it's still dope.
I don't have some crazy Rolex, and I'm not one of those guys who bashes that, because if I was making $200,000 a month net, I'd be buying everything, but if you're making anything less than $5 million a year, man, you shouldn't have a $500,000 car or a $50,000 watch. You need to be focused on the process. You know what I mean? And I know Grant talks a lot about that. He had $1 million in his bank account cash before he ever bought a nice car. Yeah. So most of the people you'll see, I got my Lamborghini because I have a personal brand. I have a YouTube channel and a course and stuff. But most of the people who have that stuff, it's to sell stuff on their personal brand. So if you don't have a personal brand, it's not really worth the investment of buying something really nice. But I'm going off a tangent, and I apologize.
No, man, you're hitting it. You're hitting it. It's value, man. It's value, and it's perspective that a lot of people need to hear too.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, it'd be falling in love with the process and not just the end goal. And obviously it's important to have the end goal so that you can have a roadmap to kind of get there. And like once you get there, that you've made progress. It's kind of like tracking your weight when you're trying to lose weight, right? So that's been one of my main things that I've learned, Number two, the second main thing that I've learned is that not everybody tells the truth. Some people exaggerate and some people tell you half of the truth. And so that can affect the way that you look at your own business and the moves that you make in your business. Like, some people might hide certain details. Some people might, because if I was going to sit here and say everything's like pretty with real estate, no, some months you'll spend $20,000 on marketing and you only make $15,000 back. Some months you spend $5,000 and you'll make $150,000. I've had both, to just expect everything to be roses and beautiful smelling and like amazing is very naive. And you've got to realize that you've got to pay attention especially in real estate. There's a lot of people who screw you over, and I could tell a few stories, but I'm not going to get into everything right now because I just don't feel comfortable talking about everything when I first started out. But not everybody you talk to who professes themselves in your local market to be a genius is going to be legit. And I'm not talking people who are trying to sell you education. I'm talking people who are trying to do deals with you, contractors, stuff like that. People will steal money from you left and right in this business. And you've got to realize that you can't be naive and that people are, there are bad people in business. So you've got to kind of learn to decipher the BS from the truth, if that makes sense. And that can be one of the most important things to you really not missing out on money when you're first getting started. So is someone legit? Are they telling the full truth? Are they telling a half truth? Are they totally lying? Falls into like networking. And so, unfortunately that's just something you have to be aware of. And a lot of people don't like to talk about that because, like I said, everybody's just roses, like motivation, like get hyped, You've got to be aware of your surroundings. You got to have those survival instincts when you're in business. And that's one of the most important lessons I've learned. That way I can have the right, view on what's, what moves I need to take in my business, who I need to partner up with, what type of things need to happen. So I hope that makes sense.
Definitely, man. You definitely spit out straight fucking fire in the last 2 or 3 minutes right there. But no, that was very valuable. And like I always say, hopefully my listeners tuning in, because I know a lot of people, is hyped up for this interview, and some people who may not know you, probably got a different viewpoint of what you're all about as a person. And I'm glad that you was able to open up and at least give us that insight on what to look out for, especially being in real estate industry. So if you're new to, the real estate industry, or if you're involved, hopefully, this whole entire segment episode was able to bring some value to you. And like I said, I know we run out of time. We press for time here, but I did want to hit one last question before we go. Yeah. And, what new adventures or, what new projects are you embarking on now that we can expect from you, leaving 2018 as we finish off these last couple months and going forward in 2019?
Yeah, so basically a few different things. So as far as the real estate stuff goes, I am moving away from doing the whole course promotion and stuff like that. Like I could post on my YouTube and you see a lot of these guys who, do YouTube videos and sell a lot of courses, make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I'm moving more towards partnering with people in specific markets, because I at this point have developed systems and processes to, help people grow their business. So if you're somebody who's done a couple deals, not if you're brand new, if you're somebody who's done a couple deals and has a business already in place and wants to grow, we're working on a system where somebody can actually kind of like a franchise, like plug in and start playing under our system and, grow their business from 1 deal a month to 5 to 10 deals a month. So that's kind of where I'm moving towards, is like partnering with operators and markets. Nice. We also got a media business. My wife has, a big following. So we sell advertising to big companies. So yeah, as far as that goes, I try to keep it real simple. But yeah, 2018, the rest of 2018 should be amazing. And 2019 should be, really great, because we're going to be, doing more of the, franchise type partnership. So.
Nice. Well, I do want to say, man, much love to you. We definitely wish you the best, especially all of us here from from Level Up Daily. Wish nothing for the best for you and your wife and your whole entire family, man. Much
Thank you,
success
man.
to you and your
Back
team.
at you.
And with that being said, thanks so much for, taking the time out of your day to come onto the podcast and actually level up with us today, man. It was definitely a pleasure, man, to have you on. And we look forward to having you again, sometime in the near future here.
Absolutely. It's always a learning experience, man. Talking about, what you've done in the past, you always learn stuff yourself. So I've definitely leveled up after today. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. Definitely. And with that being said, guys, I do want to let everybody know, like, what's the best handles, to reach you at, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, like, where can they go find your stuff? Where can they reach out to you if they got additional questions about real estate or any other projects?
So I would say Instagram is going to be the best place to reach out to me. My Instagram is just Jaelin White, Jaelin White. And then my YouTube channel is where you want to go if you want to, because in Instagram, I wouldn't hop on my DMs and ask me real estate related questions. I would watch all of my videos, and then chances are you probably won't have any questions after that. So go to my YouTube if you want content related stuff and watch those videos. And then on Instagram, if you want to reach out, maybe collaboration opportunities, maybe, some personal stuff. Maybe you have some personal issues you just want to talk about. I'm happy to help. But real estate related stuff, definitely YouTube. Anything else, I'd say Instagram's perfect.
Nice. Perfect, guys. And again, I'm going to put that down in the links below and make sure everyone's connected. And if you guys have any questions, again, Jalen's open, man. He's a cool guy. As you can tell, he's willing to answer all questions. So feel free to reach out to him. Don't hesitate. But with that being said, until next time, guys, much love, peace, and blessings. And that's the podcast.
Cool, man. I was happy to do it. It was a good time.
What is your favorite state or city to invest in real estate?
Yeah, so I like a mix of volume-based markets and high-end, high profit-based markets. So Memphis is one of my favorite Midwest volume-based markets. LA is my favorite, high profit market.
Fun fact, no one knows about you.
Well, I would say I love video games. Obviously anybody who's 21, they play Fortnite or whatever. Me and my boy Alex Signs. I'm not very good because I don't play a ton. I know I could be better if I played more, but playing video games. I like to watch a ninja every now and then because, you can live vicariously through someone who's way better than you, because he's really good. So
Nice. What do you invest your earnings into?
Masterminds. I like to go. I usually go to like 3 to 4 different masterminds a year.
Nice.
Rule of thumb is to invest about 10% of your income into some sort of education / mastermind. As far as spending goes, I spend way too much on food, on going to dinners and stuff with my wife and family. But that's one of my vices that I spend too much doing. You should not spend $3,000 a month on food for 2 people. It's crazy.
Right. Call it quality time. I'm pretty sure that's what your wife would call it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Now, who is someone you would love to meet or work with?
I would say, dang, man. I mean, I have a lot of, one person that I always thought this is my buddy Mark Evans, and I'm already starting to work with him. So it's kind of like, once you really want to work with somebody, just put the steps into making it happen, So Mark Evans is a huge guy in the media and real estate space, and we're doing some stuff together. So
nice. Shout out to Mark Evans because he has my last name, so he must be a good guy.
He is a great guy.
Nice. Well, that's it, man.